am honored and excited to be able to share today my career path to becoming a clinical psychologist. My name is Allison Momany, and I am currently a graduate student in the Department of Psychological and Brain Sciences at the University of Iowa. And I'm going to talk to you about what that means, being a graduate student in that department, what will happen after I'm done with my grad school, and also how I got to that point in my life. So to start, I thought I'd review what a clinical psychologist does. What is it that I've signed up to be when I grow up? And so a clinical psychologist, you may think of what you see in the picture here up in the right-hand corner of somebody sitting taking notes while someone else is lying on a couch talking about their problems or about their life. And although some people do practice psychology that way, typically that is not what I'm doing, and I do lots of other things. So one of the main things I do is psychological assessment. This basically means I do different tests with people to determine things like IQ or intelligence, to determine whether somebody has difficulties with learning or with memory. And I also can give or administer a lot of questionnaires to help determine differences in personality or whether somebody's having issues with symptoms of depression or anxiety. I also do what we call psychological intervention, which is what that picture is showing. It's more commonly called therapy. And as a clinical psychologist, we can do individual therapy, so meeting with someone one-on-one. We could do couples therapy, where I'd meet with a married couple, or maybe not even married, maybe people who are dating and having some difficulties. Family therapy, which involves bringing multiple members from a family together to discuss various problems with like communication. Or group therapy, which would be individuals who don't know each other, all coming together into a room and talking about ways to deal with things like depression and anxiety together as a group. So clinical psychologists, if we're thinking very broadly, diagnose and treat psychological difficulties. These are things that you've probably heard of before, like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and all these types of psychological or mental health disorders. We often also work with individuals who don't have a disorder or any sort of diagnosis, but maybe going through a time of life that's extra stressful, maybe after somebody they love passed away, or they've had a big transition in their life, like becoming a new parent. Now, the things that often people don't realize we also do is we teach. So many clinical psychologists stay professors and they teach undergraduate or graduate courses, or they may go into medical school and become a professor there and teach medical students and residents. We also conduct research. So we are looking at reasons why people experience mental health difficulties and the best ways to treat those things. We can conduct forensic evaluations. So this is kind of a big term, and basically what it means is that if somebody is going to trial for a crime, let's say that they are believed to have hurt somebody or murdered somebody, their lawyer can say that they are insane and therefore shouldn't have to stand a trial. And so psychologists can get extra training and be able to assess whether somebody should use the insanity plea, or if there are other personality or intelligence issues that played a role in the crime and should be considered during the trial. And then finally, the other kind of main area is related to businesses. Often psychologists are hired to come into businesses and give advice on the ways to optimize workers' efficiency as well as their wellness, and to help counsel if there are difficulties between employees with working relationships. Clinical psychologists can work in a variety of ages. There are specializations from infant mental health, so working with new moms and dads and their babies and helping them understand their babies, all the way up to geriatric care, helping optimize wellness in individuals who are in nursing homes or retirement communities. And I'll talk a little bit about where I specialize up in a little bit. But now that I've reviewed what in general a clinical psychologist does, you may be thinking, wow, I didn't know that this was all out there. How do I know if I want to do that? How could I, as early in my career as a high schooler, figure out that that's what I want to do? And I think that taking you through my career path might help you understand that there maybe are many different ways to get there, and there might not be one moment when you know, and that's okay. So I was born and raised in Iowa in the Amana colonies, and in 2007, I graduated from Clear Creek Amana High School. And at this point in my life, I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician specializing in genetic diseases. I knew I loved genetics, I knew I loved biology, and I thought, yep, and people told me, you're smart, be a doctor. So I said, okay, that's what I'm gonna be. And to prepare for this career path, being a pediatrician, I started volunteering in a genetic research lab at the University of Iowa, and I loved that. I also shadowed a doctor in the newborn nursery, and I thought that was fun. I thought helping take care of babies was fun. And I volunteered for all sorts of community activities involving children. So I knew I wanted to be involved with kids. I knew I liked biology and science, and I knew I wanted to help kids in some way. So then I attended the University of Iowa for my undergraduate education. I started in the fall of 2007 and did 4 years there. And during this time, I learned a lot. I took many courses. And all of a sudden, it wasn't so clear to me what I wanted to be when I grew up. So for a while, when I first started, I was still thinking doctor. Then I thought maybe just like a general scientist. I was a biochemistry and chemistry double major at that time. I didn't really enjoy organic chemistry class. I enjoyed biology more. So then I switched back to being a doctor because I liked biology. And then I realized I really missed my psychology courses I had started taking when I wasn't specializing in that anymore. And I really enjoyed thinking about kids and behavior and helping kids when they are feeling sad. And so I finally landed on a psychology major and decided that maybe I wanted to be a child psychologist. So during this time, what I did to prepare for these various careers that were bouncing around in my head was I continued working in a genetic research lab. I knew I was passionate about genetics and science. And I started working with a clinical psychologist who worked with children that had behavior problems. And so I knew I wanted to help children with behavior and emotion problems. So I'm starting to hone in a little bit. And I kept volunteering because that was important to me. I graduated and I knew I wanted to help kids and I thought I wanted to be a child psychologist, but I wasn't certain yet. And so I decided to take a few years off of school and work what's called a post-baccalaureate job. So what this meant is I worked in that genetics research lab I worked in throughout undergrad. I accepted a full-time position there, working 40 hours a week. And I did that for 3 years. And I loved that time. And I'll tell you a bit about why. So at this point, all of a sudden, it was like this pressure to decide for sure, am I going to do med school? Am I going to do grad school? Am I not going to do any more school? And when all that pressure hit, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. It all sounded good. And then I graduated and I wasn't sure. So what I did to prepare for my next step in my journey was I took a breath. I took some time off. I had my whole life up to that point that I could remember been going to school and hadn't really taken a step back to breathe. I talked to lots of people in all sorts of different positions in science and psychology, people who went to undergrad, people who didn't, people who went to med school and got a PhD. And I did some things that I'd been putting off because I was in school. I took more time to travel to visit friends. I did RAGBRAI. And these are fun things. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is that during this time is when I finally got enough space in my head to really think about what I wanted to do when I grew up based on what I liked, not based on what other people thought I should be doing. And so ultimately, I did decide on graduate school to become a child psychologist. So I said, yes, I would like to be a child clinical psychologist. I took that time and it helped me realize that's what I loved. And at this point, because I had my degree completed in undergrad, the only thing I needed to do was take the test called the GRE, which is a standardized exam. And then I applied to schools, of course, and did some interviews. But ultimately, there was no extra work at this point since I'd already graduated undergrad. So that was my journey to where I'm at currently. So what does that mean? If you want to be a clinical psychologist, what do you have to do in grad school? It's more school for sure. It's at least 4 to 6 years of education after your bachelor's degree, so after 4 years of undergrad. And while during those 4 to 6 years, you're going to take classes. How many and what exact classes you take depends on what program you go to. In general, it's going to be less classes than undergrad. So you're not going to be taking 3 to 4 classes a semester. It's going to be a couple of years where you're taking between 1 to 2 classes each semester. And then the last 2 to 3 years, you might not take any classes. You get the opportunity to teach. Usually you're what's called a teaching assistant, which means you're not leading the entire class of like 500 people, but you meet with smaller sections of about 20 students, and you get to teach them about psychology. You do lots of research. It's a PhD program, meaning research is part of your training. And so for clinical psychology, you are typically working with a mentor to you who does research that is related to your interests. So my mentor does research on ADHD in children, and that's what I was interested in too. So we worked well together. And then finally, you start your clinical training. You start doing clinical work. And for me, this meant I did lots of training in administering those psychological assessments. So I worked with all ages and ended up slowly specializing in children. And I learned how to give IQ tests to kids ages 3 on up to adults who were 70. Tests that looked at memory, learning, other cognitive or psychological tasks, questionnaires about personality. And not only did I learn how to give those tests, I learned how to interpret the results to make sense for the people that were being tested. I also did individual therapy. So again, I did different age ranges. You start out working primarily with adults, and then over time I started working with children too. So I think my youngest individual client was 6 years old, and I've worked with individuals on up to 60 years old. And then finally, my favorite is the version of family therapy that I was able to be trained in and do. It's called parent-child interaction therapy. And it's very unique in that the parent and the child are in a room together playing. And I, as the therapist, as you can see in this picture, I'm on the other side of a one-way mirror. So I can see them playing. They can't see me. And so it's a way for me to see the parent and child interact without me being in the room and changing how the child might behave. And then while this is going on, I have maybe my cell phone or an earbud in my ear, and I'm communicating to the parent who has an earbud in his or her ear. And I'm able to provide the parent with feedback about the way they're interacting with their child. And so this is really special because often when parents want help with their kids, they come in, and as psychologists, we give advice. We might give them a handout, and then it's kind of like, good luck, hope that works. This way, I can give that advice in the moment while they're interacting with their child. And they can also talk back to me, and I can interact with them while they're playing with their child. And it's a really fun way to do this therapy and feel like you're making change with the child and parent's relationship. So what's next for me? I have 1 year left of grad school, actually. I finished all my research and I finished all my work at Iowa, but the final year of clinical psychology, it's kind of like doing a residency for medical school. You match to a program somewhere in the country. So I matched to an internship for 1 year at Hennepin County Medical Center in Minneapolis. So I'll do that for the next year, and then next August, I will graduate with my PhD. And that's when I'll officially be a clinical psychologist and called a doctor. And after that, I get to decide if I want to stay in academia, which means staying at a university and being a professor and teaching as well as doing research and some clinical work, or if I want to go private practice and just do clinical work all day. So what's great and what can sometimes be not so great about being a clinical psychologist? We'll start with the not so great. Becoming a clinical psychologist takes lots of time and effort. For me, it will be 11 years of school after high school. So that is more time. It can be emotionally distressing at times. You're working with individuals that have seen some scary things or endured some really traumatic events, and that can be hard to sit in the room with somebody and hear those stories. We also have to accept we can't fix everything as a psychologist. It's not the same as being a friend who, if our best friend doesn't do well on a test, we say, okay, I'll help you study and we'll do better next time. We can't do that. We can only help our patients find ways to make changes in their own lives, but we can't fix it for them. And that can be hard to pull back and not do that. And then there's, of course, lots of documentation, lots of note writing and report writing. And that's going to be true in a lot of jobs, but it's definitely true here. What's great, though, is making a difference in lives. Then when a client or a patient tells you how their child is doing better and they enjoy playing with their child now, or someone tells me that it's the first time in their life they haven't felt really sad, that's huge. And again, it's because we guide them, we show them coping skills, not because we fix it ourselves, but it is a difference you make. I love interacting with people, so this is on the great side for me. I get to interact with people every day, whether it's in research or in clinical work. It's flexible, so this is one position that you can go into interested in research, and then if you decide that maybe you don't like research as much as you thought, or you're getting burnt out on it, that's okay. You can switch to clinical work instead. So you have flexibility that sometimes you don't have with other research positions or other clinical positions. And I can even decide that I want to do 2 days a week of clinical work and 3 days a week of research in the future. So that flexibility to me was really important because I am still passionate about genetics and doing what we would call like hard science, and I'm passionate about clinical work. And finally, I've learned tons of coping skills for stress myself along the way through my training and through talking with clients and patients. I learned from them. They always say, see one, do one, teach one. So for learning something, that's so true. When you have to teach somebody else about coping skills, it kind of sticks with you and helps you realize where you can do that in your own life. So it's helped me become better at dealing with stress. So briefly, I won't talk through all of these. I just wanted to have a slide about other pathways because maybe you're not interested in research or maybe you're not interested in doing as much schooling, and there are many ways to go about a similar job. So whether you're interested in medical school and becoming a psychiatrist, a different type of psychologist, or maybe you don't want to do a full PhD or MD program, but are interested in doing undergraduate work only or a master's level. All of these positions listed are going to involve therapy of some sort and helping individuals with mental health disorders. And so I have them listed as well as the different degrees that you get, and then an estimate of about how many years it will take after high school to complete this degree. So let's say you're interested, you're like, this sounds cool. What should I do right now? Number one thing I think is volunteering. Volunteering always is helpful, and the places that I would suggest you volunteer right now to see if you do want to work with individuals with mental health problems would be a homeless shelter, United Action for Youth in Iowa City, signing up with United Way, or the Rape Victim Advocacy Program, or the Crisis Center. And these are all volunteer organizations that are going to have many individuals affected by traumatic events and or mental health difficulties. And so it'd be a way for you to start to interact with those individuals more in depth and see if that's something you like. And specifically in providing a support service to such individuals, because mental health difficulties is very prevalent in everyday life, but this way you'd be in a supportive role. I would suggest shadowing somebody if you can. That may be difficult right now, but in the future, if possible, to shadow a psychologist, a counselor, or a therapist. Go ahead and just go onto websites and look at the coursework required for a degree in psychology, an undergrad degree. Look at the titles of those classes and the descriptions. And if it sounds interesting to you, then that's a good indicator that maybe this is a good path for you. And then take some sort of introductory psych course, whether it's at your high school or at Kirkwood. See if you like just a basic psych course. And if that still is interesting to you, this is maybe a good path. And my final slide is about career advice. So you may be thinking, this sounds fun, but can I actually get a job when I'm done? And you can. Mental health specialists, psychologists, but also those other pathways I highlighted, extremely employable right now. We are having a mental health crisis in America. That was true a year ago, and now with COVID-19 and some of the racial injustices we're seeing, it's more true than ever. COVID-19 is causing increases in anxiety and depression, and the racial injustices are causing some more trauma. And we especially need individuals if you're interested in working with kids and teens like I am. Most people want to work with adults. They think kids are problematic and teenagers are moody, and I don't think that. And I love working with the youth. And so if you think you'd like to work with that age, we definitely need that. And if you want to continue working in a rural location like Iowa or other similar states, we're very low on mental health providers. So finally, key skills, this word cloud kind of says it all with empathy. You need to be able to empathize with the patient, even if they're saying something you may not agree with, to hear them and then be able to work with them. Communication and being a good listener. Being okay with that discomfort of maybe feeling sad when someone tells you a story, or anxious that you need to tell your patient something they might not like hearing. Being flexible. You may walk into the room one day and have a plan of what you're going to do, and then your patient's going to tell you something terrible that happened to them, and your plan's out the window and you got to go with it. And finally, being dependable. We do become very important individuals for many people to work through different grief or stress. And so being dependable and able to see people pretty regularly is an important part of being a clinical psychologist. I hope this was helpful in you guys learning about a new career, and thank you for listening.